Okay, well, this is our June meeting. This is our DOT roundtable, um, where DOT is going to answer all of our questions. We're um we're all getting ready for the end of the school year, and getting caught up on some things. We've got, of course, our DOTs keeps on going, but we'll be good. At least we're getting some better weather these days. So our last meeting was held on May 15th. Craig Stackpole with Valio presented on air conditioning maintenance and repair. And a few of the topics that he spoke about was, first of all, the company had three different names before, or two different ones before Valio. And now I see it is changing again. I got an email the other day on that. They will be presenting at the summer seminar, so they'll be doing some training for us there as well. They are based out of Elkhart, Indiana. The AC system, as most of us all know, but it's a compressor, condenser, metering device, and evaporator. Thermal expansion valves will be used in all school bus systems from this point on with their system. Moisture is the largest problem when it comes to the AC systems that they're finding. So anytime that you do get into your air conditioning system, any components get replaced, make sure you change the air dryer. The orifice tubes are color coded, so as you're changing those, just make sure you're using the proper orifice tube. And that meeting was also recorded, and I did send that link out to everyone. So, and it is also on our YouTube channel, so we can refer to that as you like. Today's meeting is going to be, of course, our DOT roundtable. We have Jeff Cory, he's the field operations manager. We have Chad Smith, he's the main office manager, and we have Steve Farina, and he's also a main office manager. They're going to be answering all of our DOT questions that you guys have sent to me over the time here, and I think there's going to be a little bit of time for some extra questions if anybody has any. Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Good morning to everyone. Like Dan said, we have Steve Farina and Chad Smith. They both work directly at the main office. As you know, I'm out in the field quite a bit. Just to give you a little where DOT is standing right now, the summer has kicked off for new buses. So the dealers that are on the call, as you know, you're getting influx of new buses, especially there was a holdup with some of them last year. So they're now starting to come through. As far as I know, we are currently staying ahead of the inspections. I have not heard any feedback that we're not keeping up with it. The field guys are extremely busy, and we are down about 8 inspectors statewide. So we're actually moving people from regions to fill in, backfill. So it's been hectic on our side as far as the scheduling goes, but we are staying ahead. Currently, we have 2 new guys that are coming on. One is in the Syracuse region, and one will be the Utica-Albany region. So that's in the works right now. Basically, Dan sent me some questions that we're going to go through. If there's any questions at the end, you can bring them on. It's an open forum, so any questions are welcome. If I don't know the answer, I'll get your name and we'll get back to you with the correct answer. So the first one is, can we have 1 or 2 LED exterior lights that are inoperative? That includes a brakes, running light, backup lights. We've had a standing policy for the people that's been around for years. Previously, we used to fail the inspections for any LEDs that were out. We updated our policy, and if there's 1 LED of the light fixtures that is operational, we write it as a 9902 and give you 15 days to replace that light. The main reason there is we reached out to the light manufacturers, and none of them would give us a percentage or how many LEDs lights could be out to still meet federal standards. So we had to come up with a medium ground, and this policy's been around, I want to say since 2015 or 2016. We reviewed it last year again, and we stuck to the same 15 days. This is in conjunction actually with a DMV inspection where they place a vehicle out of service for LEDs that are out. So we're a little bit less on our criteria than the DMV, because we do give the 15-day period to replace the light. Are there any questions on that?
Yeah, Jeff, that I think during part of that we lost communication with you. At least I did. So, it is a note. You're saying if you have a couple of the LEDs out.
It's a 9902. You'll see it on your form, and it's just like a C defect. We'll write into there which light fixture is, the LEDs are out, and we'll give 15 days to repair it. So it's not actual A, B, or C. It's a note 9902 for the LEDs.
Okay.
Any other questions on it? The next one, if the bus has a small exhaust leak that stops after the engine runs for 3 seconds, is it a failure? We've always tried to put out guidance that the vehicle should be up to operating temperature when the inspector starts that inspection. So it is a responsibility of the operator to make sure that the vehicles are up to running temperature. As we all know, there are some engine manufacturers, when you start them cold, you will get some leaks, minor leaks at some connections, or especially the manifolds. So if the bus is up to temperature, that should basically take care of any exhaust leaks that may be an issue. Any questions on that? Okay, the third one, reflective tape around the exterior of the emergency exit door or windows are faded or peeling in some areas. Can DOT make us replace it? Is it a no, or is it a failure? Generally, and this can be very subjective, as we know, tapes are going to fade a little bit due to the sun, especially if they're parked outside. But the tape should generally be reflective, and we will give you a note that says that an area of the tape is starting to fade. I have not heard of anyone failing a bus unless it's really, really extreme, but I don't think that's the case out there. Basically, everyone keeps them pretty well situated, and if they are starting to peel, they should be, when you're doing your monthly inspections, you should be noting that so it can be repaired at some time or replaced. Any questions for that? The next one are interior window decals. If it's legible but the corners are peeling, is it a no or a failure? Again, this should just be if they're legible and a majority of them are attached to the window, usually the inspector will turn and just show you, hey, this is starting to peel. But again, I haven't heard of any failures or issues on it. And to go forward, and I've always had people, they trim around the corners so they're not squared out, they're more rounded, once they start peeling, so the decal will stay affixed for a little bit longer. Any questions there?
All right, so as long as it's legible, right? It's got to be legible.
That is correct. All the wording, all the letters must be on there and legible.
Okay.
Now some of them, as you know, start to fade from the sun, especially the ones that have a clear background.
Mm-hmm.
If those are starting to fade so you can't even read them, they should be replaced.
Okay.
The next one, if there's a slight air leak between the primary and secondary tanks, is it a failure? And does it have to be a certain size leak? As we all know, there's check valves between the primary and secondary tanks. They are designed not to leak air between air drain downs. If you drain the primary and you're losing air from the secondary tank, the check valve is not holding. So you should do a little bit more research to find out why the air is exchanging between the tanks. But generally, we will put a bus out of service if one of the primary or secondary tanks loses air during the break drain procedure. And again, this should be done on your monthly services, because to exercise those check valves, there's a better chance of them not leaking during our inspection. Any questions there? I don't know. Is my internet still kicking out?
No, you're fine.
Okay, because I'm getting a lot of videos paused due to internet issues. A lot of them are popping up. That's why I was asking.
Okay, yeah, it's all smooth on our end.
Okay, good.
So that with that air leak, if it's just seeping past a little bit, that is going to be an out of service defect.
Yeah, if you're losing air between the tanks, the
Mhm.
check valve is leaking.
Okay.
Yes,
And that's an A failure.
that is correct.
Okay.
The next one, if you have a window that doesn't stay completely closed, it is a failure. Really, that's a non-issue to us unless the actual latch mechanism is broken. But if it's just, they all fall down and they're not fully closed or latched, either the helper, the assistant, or the MVI can take the window and close it. If it stays closed, it's a non-issue. But, if the latch is working, it's not broken or sharp edges, something of that sort. But otherwise, it's a non-issue for us.
Okay. Well, we had something on this. I know what this guy's talking about with the windows that drop down a little bit, but what we're having happen is the window frame itself is cracked at the top, the plastic,
Okay.
and it's actually dropping down just a little bit.
Yeah, that's a different concern than I was reading into it.
Well, no, this is a different question. This is something
Okay.
that I'm adding to it.
Okay, so the plastic trim, if it has sharp edges, it can be subjective, but that would be a failure if you have sharp edges on a cracked plastic trim inside the bus.
All right, if it's sharp, yeah, I get that. But if the window, because of that, is down just a little bit, so it doesn't close all the way tight,
Yeah.
with that not
At
sharp.
that point, we would probably put it as a note,
Mhm.
but someone should take attention. If you know that the trim is broken and the window's not completely closed because of it, you should go ahead and repair that, because it's going to get worse.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not gonna get better on its own.
Yeah, we are replacing a lot of those.
Yes. Yep. And we do see sometimes a trim is over tightened and this plastic and the heat, it expands, contracts, and they do crack quite often.
Hmm.
So, yes.
Okay.
The next one, and I think, Dan, you might have to give a little input because I'm not sure. The first one is, how much tread difference can there be between two steer tires?
Yeah, that would be from the left tire and the right tire.
Okay. We have no regulation, either New York State or federally, to address side to side on steer tires. You may get some operational issues with it pulling or something of that sort. But as long as the tread is legal, we really have, you could stand there and debate all day. Is it industry accepted to put a new tire against a used one? But as far as the regulation goes, that would be allowed under what if we did the inspection. But operational issues, you might get a vehicle pulling side to side, something of that sort.
Okay, so long as it's got more than 4 30-seconds on the front tire, you could have 23 30-seconds on the left and 6 30-seconds on the right tire.
That is correct.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that is correct. Industry accepted procedure is you would put 2 new tires on the front. But
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree.
Again, we cannot mandate that, but you have to think what is best for, the bus and the students and things of that sort. Again, we can't mandate. But industry accepted procedures, you would see them replace the tires together. Harry, you had a question?
You got to turn your mic on, Harry. Harry, you have to turn your microphone on. I don't know. I can't unmute him.
Can you hear me?
There you go. Yes.
There you
Yes.
go.
Yeah, Roger had his hand up, I think. Roger.
Yes, both. I was going to go at him next, but
I didn't have a.
Okay.
Yeah.
Roger, good morning.
The only concern I can comment on the tire
What's that?
is
Like 10 years.
you could get a problem with electronic stability control where it's not reading the same speed from both front tires.
Yeah, right.
How do they call and say, hey, I got 2,600.
Somebody's mic is open, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Evan.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm saying.
Evan, can you mute your mic?
Oh.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
I have said something.
Roger, could you
Okay.
repeat what you were saying?
Yep.
Yeah, the only concern I know of with front tires would be the electronic stability control. If it's reading enough of a difference in revs per mile, it could give you some problems with that system.
Totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
The next one, what size hole in a seat cover is acceptable? We have a policy in our manual that any upholstery, no holes over 1 3/4 inches are allowed to be repaired. The cover must be replaced. People put seat tape over holes all the time, but if it's ripped or cut over 1 3/4 inches, the seat cover needs to be replaced. And the exception there is any fire block upholstery that's required on wheelchair equipped vehicles is not allowed to be repaired unless the repair procedure is also fireproof rated. So any fire block material has to be replaced. Otherwise, you can use seat tape up to 1 3/4 inches. Any questions there? The next one, if I didn't miss one, is if a seatbelt works but sticks from time to time, is it a no or a failure? This goes back to many different things that happen during the inspection, but if it's one of the seatbelts, again, we're only checking 3 seatbelts in the whole bus. Out of 66 seatbelts, we're checking 3 of them. And the driver seatbelt is always checked, so basically 4. But 3 passenger seatbelts, if it's sticking during the inspection and it's only done one time, we're going to turn to the assistant and just say, hey, you know what, the seatbelt is sticking, you should keep an eye on it. They can also check it themselves. But I will know if this is an ongoing thing and we come back every time and there's a seatbelt on each bus that is sticking, there's an issue someplace. So at that point, there might be a larger discussion of how to handle it moving forward. But we all know that emergency buzzer, sometimes we open the window, the buzzer doesn't work. the assistant goes back and it works every time. So, so reasonable man approach would be if it's sticking one time, we would talk to them, possibly put a note, a 9902, and go from there. But if it sticks every time, it's going to be written up as a failure, which with a passenger seatbelt is a B compared to a driver seatbelt would be an out of service. Any questions on that?
No, that's no questions on that. But the buzzer thing that you mentioned, I don't even think that's one of these
It
questions.
isn't. I was just using that as an example because we all know if we open a roof hatch or a side window, sometimes the buzzer doesn't click on for us, but you guys go back and check it. It works every time.
Okay, so in a case like that, it would, it works when we do it, but it didn't work when the inspector did it the first time.
I would hope that the inspector would take the high road and say, hey, maybe it was stuck right away, but now it's working every time.
Okay.
And I've done it myself. Usually at the end of the road test, I'll walk back to whatever window or roof hatch did not work, and I would check it again.
Okay.
And I would feel confident that at that point it was working. So you would just move on.
Yeah, I think that's something that all of us have been through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And we can all debate all day long on if the driver really opened all of them. Was it stuck for a long time? But, that's not a conversation here. But driver's pre-trips goes a long ways to help you guys in the garages, even to do your PMs. Those drivers are in those vehicles every day. They know new noises, rattles. That's things that you guys need to know when you do your PM. You're seeing the buses maybe once every 30 days, compared to a driver that's in it for 6 hours a day. So drivers pre-trips go a long ways, in my opinion. Next one. Can DOT fail a bus for uneven tread wear? 830 seconds difference from the outside tread to the inside tread. Now, are you talking on the rear axle or the front? Is it the same tire, outer tread to the inner tread?
I think what this guy was saying was say the right rear duals, the tread difference between those two tires on that same wheel.
Okay.
Same side.
So we have a policy, a DOT policy, if it's over 830 seconds difference between the duals, it would be placed out of service. Now, again, from side to side, I'm going to go back to what Roger was bringing up. If you start mismatching tires as far as tread depths, you're going to get into traction control issues, ABS issues. It's not just the tire wear, it's the other electronic systems of the buses that are going to be picked up on this difference of the tire tread itself. But 830 seconds is the max difference between the duals.
Okay, and then again, between the right side and the left side doesn't really matter, but but you're talking about the ones that are on the same side of the bus.
That's correct.
Okay.
But again, you're going to get into even pinion wear, different size tires on each side of the pinion. You're going to start wearing components early if you start changing these tire sizes and they're not compatible, I should say. So, it gets into just more than the tire tread depth. It goes into a whole new picture of the ABS, traction control, pinion wear, things of that sort. And many operators, if they start changing dual wheels and say they're going to put two new ones on one side, they'll take the other good dual wheel and they use it on the next bus that comes in to match them close to the tread depth instead of putting new on one side and used on the other. But again, we can't mandate that. That's more of an operational issue.
Okay.
And actually, I don't know if there's any tire manufacturers or dealers on the call, but I looked up just Googling for maintaining commercial tires. The industry accepted tread depth difference is 430 seconds. And again, this might be coming from tire salesmen but they're the ones that really know the tires, and they're saying 430 seconds. Just, as a reference. Ken?
What about tour buses or coach buses? 430 seconds in the front, but you have 2 rear axles. Are they minimum spec 230 seconds on both rear axles?
That is correct.
That is okay. So
the 430 seconds is for the steer tires.
Okay.
And that's for vehicles over 10,000 pounds.
Okay.
30 seconds. And in the rear is 230 seconds for either axle.
Okay.
The drive or the tag.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question. Any other questions or concerns so far? The next one, if a seat foam is broken along the top, but you really have to push hard and work the foam to feel the metal, is it a failure or a note? And what is an acceptable seat foam regulation? Again, I'm referring back to our policy guide for the inspectors. And we all know the seat foams break down, especially on the aisle side, because of the book bags going up and down and hitting the foam as it comes out, or the kids put their hands on the top of the seats and propel themselves down the aisle. But basically the wording, and some of it's subjective, I will say, but if you can feel metal detected through the upholstery or the padding using light force impact pressure. But if you can feel the top of that seat foam and you can start to feel metal, it's broken down and they should start being replaced. Any questions on that? And I think the last one, that was my last one. I'm going to turn it over to Chad. There are 3 other questions that Chad is going to speak about, which are if you file an appeal, what is the correct procedure? Also accident reporting. And then he's going to talk to a little bit about our 720, the official guide, and where to find that on the website and why we went this direction.
Good morning, everyone. Many of you I'm familiar with, and I apologize for not being on video. I wanted to make sure I could potentially show you some of the items on our website in regards to these 2 questions. So the first question that we have here is, can you walk us through the proper procedure for us to follow if we want to dispute an inspector's decision to fail a bus? So this actually connects up with our appeals process. And I have a couple of things that I would like to go over in regards to that. So Dan, if you don't mind, I think I'm just gonna steal the presentation here for just a moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can everybody see the New York State DOT website here?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to take you to where we have our appeals document, and then just go over the entire appeals process if that's appropriate. So at our DOT website, dot.ny.gov, this brings you to this location here. If you come to and click on this bus icon, this will take us to the passenger carrier area, and then you click on where it says bus safety. I'm also going to send these links out in a message to everyone if you're okay with that, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you click on the School Bus and Passenger Safety Bureau, and that brings us to our little home world here at New York State DOT. So you have a whole bunch of information here, but you're going to find that our appeals documents and our appeals process are described in 2 different locations. right here in the bus inspection program, it explains our entire process, including out of service criteria and interpretations. But can an out of service defect be appealed? And we're just going to go to that particular form. Now, this is the official policy for an appeal. Before going over this, I would like to point out a couple of things. So any appeals process, when you're talking about an appeals, you don't always have to go to an appeal. You should be able to go to your inspector, and if you're not seeing it the same way as the inspector is seeing it, you should be able to have that freedom to go and say, Inspector, I have this issue. I don't see where this meets the criteria. And you should be able to have an actual conversation with your inspector. And the inspector should be able to clearly delineate specifically how it meets the criteria and why it's an A defect. If we're having struggles with that kind of thing, that's something that you would want to identify through the appeals process to the supervisor, so that the supervisor can work on the inspector on how they're documenting it or how they're describing those particular defects. But the first step is you should be able to talk to your inspector about things that you're concerned about, or items that during the inspection that you may not agree with. So the thing is that although step one for the official appeals process, the previous step to the appeals process is just talk to your inspector. They should be able to identify and provide a reasoning why they're citing that particular defect, and then provide some substantiation for it. Now, if talking with the inspector sits there and provides something that you don't agree with, or provides substantiation that you don't agree with, then you start entering into the formal appeals process, where you would notify the inspector that there is a disagreement. The inspector shall clearly explain the basis for the out of service determination. And then if the operator decides that the inspector's explanation is not sufficient to resolve the disagreement, the operator shall have 3 business days from the date of the inspection to contact the inspector supervisor in writing, preferably via email, in order for the supervisor to review the matter. These business days are hard set, so keep in mind, if you're looking to appeal something, you can't wait a week or 2 weeks later. You need to identify it right away. The other part here is that you should not be doing any work on it, changing or modifying whatever was identified as an A defect in regards to it. And the vehicle has to be kept in that particular status until determination is made. You have 3 business days to identify the appeal to the supervisor. The supervisor will then respond in kind and explain whether they are basically agreeing with you or the inspector. If the inspection is substantiated, as an operator, you have the ability to request the supervisor do an on-site review. There's another hard-coded time limit of 3 business days that supervisor has to get out to the location to do the on-site review. And then they will provide a determination in writing within 5 business days. If no on-site review is requested, or 5 business days after the date of the on-site review. If the supervisor determines the defects were written in error, the appropriate change shall be made to the department's inspection records and shall notify the main office that such change has been made. And then step 2, if you do not agree with the determination that the supervisor made, you have the ability to file a further appeal within 10 business days to our main office here, either by writing at the address for our bureau here, or by the email address, our passenger safety email address. It has to be in writing, and we, our main office staff will get involved with investigation of that and determine and substantiate a defect or withdraw it from the inspection record. So that is the culmination of the appeals process with in regards to the 3 steps. Now, we typically don't get that many formal appeals. Usually it's handled at the inspector level, and sometimes there's an informal, conversation with the supervisors in regards to that. I've also heard out in the field and through different conferences and so forth that sometimes, an operator may feel uncomfortable going through an appeals process because they're, afraid of some sort of retaliation or that they won't get along with their inspector. I can say that we don't look at appeals in that way. The thing is that every operator has the right to make an appeal, especially if there's clear and convincing evidence contrary to what the inspector has written. There really shouldn't be any fear of any reprisals for going through this appeals process. You should be able to, especially if you have that communication, that clear communication with your inspector, there really should be no offense taken or otherwise. And if there is, upon an appeal, we would like that to be identified through the appeals process so it can be dealt with and so forth, because every operator has this right to an appeal, and we don't want anybody not to appeal just because they don't feel comfortable with their interaction with their inspector afterwards. So if through the appeals process or after the appeals process you find that the inspector is treating you differently, we would encourage you to report that so that we can deal with it appropriately in time. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions about the appeal process? I'll take by the silence that I'm doing an all right job.
And I'll just add in there, for the 6 years that I've been field manager, I believe the whole time I have even reviewed one of them, that made it up to the main office. Usually between the inspector and the supervisor, they're normally handled right out in the field. Some of them do call for a little bit of guidance before it even makes up to the main office. But like I said, I think I've had one in the last 6 years.
So it seems as if a lot of these are being informally handled by just having frank and candid conversations with the inspector and in certain situations the supervisor. But there's no reason why you can't, go through this appeals process and file an appeal and formally, say I have a concern about the defect that was written. All right, can you go through the criteria for when we need to report an accident to DOT? Do we need to report every accident? And this is a very good question because there's a lot of confusion about what accidents need to be reported and when and time frame. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to take a couple moments to go through some of the accident reporting items. So going back to our website and our portion of the website here, we actually have a link for reportable accidents. So any vehicle that's inspected by us needs to report an accident to us for any one of these 4 criteria. Any mechanical failure, any evidence or intrusion of the body into the body of the vehicle of carbon monoxide, exhaust, fumes emitted from such vehicle, or other noxious gases or smoke. Smoke other than normal exhaust emanating from the engine or any other part of the vehicle, whether internal or external, and the presence of emission, whether internal or external, of sparks, flame, or fire. In addition, so that's under section B, but any accident which results in the loss of life or injury of any passenger. So to summarize, if somebody's been injured, if somebody's been killed, if there's any signs or presence of any smoke or noxious fumes, or if there's any mechanical failure. So 3 of those items that I just listed are clear cut. If there's an injury, if there's a fatality, you know that you have to submit an accident report. If there's a fire, it's a good possibility you know you have to report the accident. The last one, mechanical failure, isn't clearly defined, and so that's what prompts a little bit of confusion in regards to the accident reporting requirements. The way that we've determined this is that if the vehicle suffers a mechanical failure where it cannot continue on its currently scheduled trip, so it can't continue on, a rescue bus needs to be sent, and so forth, that would be what we'd be looking for reported in terms of mechanical failure. We do see a whole bunch of these reported where somebody clipped a mirror, or somebody backed into a school bus, backed into another vehicle, and these are reported, and they don't really need to be. You can always be in the right by reporting them, but you don't always, you don't have to unless it falls into one of those 4 items: a fatality, somebody got injured, smoke, noxious fumes, or fire, or a mechanical breakdown where the vehicle can't continue its trip. Any questions on the accidents criteria that we're looking at right there?
And I just want to throw a little caveat in there on mechanical failure. If your bus gets back to your yard at the end of the night or the morning run, and the driver does a post trip, and the lug nuts are worn enough so the tire is, or the wheel is loose, and it's showing evidence of that, that is a mechanical failure that should be reported, even though the bus made it back to the yard. And that is a real life example that I'm giving to you, that a bus got back to the yard, the lug nuts were loose, the wheel was ruined, and it was not reported. That's a real life scenario. So that is a reportable incident. It's a mechanical failure, whether the lugs failed or if it was human error, that's still reportable.
All right. Let's say if you had a blower motor that was starting to go, and there was a little bit of smoke, and the driver turned the blower motor off. Smoke went away, everything was fine. No, we're going to change that blower motor, but do we need to report that?
If it puts smoke into the interior, yes.
Okay.
And that's more of a follow-up, Dan, just to answer your question, go a little bit further. Because if that smoke and the kids inhaled it, and now the kids report it the next day, and we get questioned about these kids going to the hospital because of a incident on a school bus, and we do not know about it, we're going to start calling that operator and saying, hey, what happened? Because there are a lot of things that play into these reporting structures. And I will say we get a lot of reports. We are now teamed up with the state police on accidents. If a state trooper comes to an accident, we get notified regardless if there was injuries or mechanical failure. The state police will file on their own. They'll send a report and saying, hey, we went to this school bus accident and this is what we found. And to us, it may not be reportable, but we are still notified.
All right, so basically, we have a preference, although the regulation tells you to email an accident report form or information. Sorry, I have to sneeze.
I'll scare it out of you.
So basically, even though it specifies that you can email to our passenger safety inbox in the regulation, we would prefer for those accident report forms, if you can fill out this downloadable accident report form off of our website, and then also email those or call and email or fax it to this location, or just call our stick number directly. So these are the two means that we prefer that you use to provide information that'll get to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there are always somebody at these numbers and monitoring these emails, so that if you do have a significant incident, we can be right on it right away. Obviously, if it's a significant enough incident, we may be getting questioned from our commissioner or others, and we need to provide those answers expeditiously. So the thing is that just be aware, if you're involved in a larger incident, we will be reaching out to your staff, potentially for some additional information after it occurs. So the other part here is that once you have an accident that meets this criteria, you're not supposed to be using the vehicle to transport passengers until it is released by the Department of Transportation. Now, what does that mean, released? You can contact your inspector, and the inspector can say, no, I don't need to do anything else with this. You can go use the vehicle. It can be over phone, it can be over email, but basically before the vehicle is being used again, we just need to have somebody release. It can be the inspector, it can be somebody from the main office here, but before that vehicle then undergoes another trip, it needs to be cleared by us. Any question on those items?
Nope. And this is all spelled out right on your site, the one that you're on now, right? So
That's correct, yeah.
okay.
So we have one last question, and then Jeff asked if I could just do provide a little bit of an overview of our website and what information is there, because it may be helpful just to peruse it and to see if you learn anything new, or it provides good, valuable information in many cases. So the last question is, we had some concerns or a question as to why we moved from having a PDF version of the New York State DOT safety regulations, the Part 720s, and have moved to a link that is difficult to get to. So, and before I go there, so again, we're going to our particular portion of the website. We have New York State laws and regulations, and as part of that, we have links now to the regulations. Some people from the group here have indicated that they're having problems with this particular website being permitted for them to view from their school security, IT security item. I don't know if there's any way that can be put on as an exemption to that requirement. You may want to see if you can, because ultimately there's a reason why we moved to this type of web-based portion of the regulations. And I'm going to explain a little bit of the reason why. We've had quite a few recent minor changes to the regulations, but enough that they impact some portions of the regulation. It was a little bit easier when, for example, the old 720, I think it was 721.9 regarding electric vehicles.
720.9.
720.9.
Yes.
My apologies. That one was repealed, so it was easy to remove that from a PDF and ready to go. But now we're starting to have things included and minor changes. And the concern is that if we issue out a PDF today, and then regulation changes occur 3 months from now, we issue out another one. What particular copy are you going to have? Are you going to have the right copy, or are you going to have the wrong copy? So these websites are updated with the most recent regulation changes. And that way, if you go to these websites, you can always have the most current, up-to-date regulations as of the date. Whereas if we issue you a PDF, or we have available PDF and you have it from 3 years ago, you may be missing items from your regulation. That's part of the reason why we went to this web-based link. I know it's probably not preferred, and we can still talk about other options available, but I actually thought I would bring it up as a conversation of, do we still need the PDFs, and what are your thoughts on it? So certainly feel free for open discussion in regards to that.
Pretty silent guys. Come on.
Well, I mean, it is good that it's all together in one place and updated on a regular basis.
Right. And just some of the things that have changed, like Chad was saying, we've repealed the 720.9 electric vehicle regulations. We added a section for school use vans, which is a good point to bring up right now, and it wasn't a question, but I'll throw it in there. We added part of our regulation for school use, any van, if it's over 10 passenger, including the driver, so we're talking 11 or more, including the driver, must be a certified school bus or a multifunction school activity bus if it's used in school service. As we all know, 12 passenger, 15 passenger vans were being purchased. And if you look at the federal label on the door, it'll say bus, parentheses, not school bus. They are not allowed to be used in school service. So any standard production van used in school service must be 10 or less, including the driver, and they'll actually be labeled MPV. And over the last, I'm going to say 7-8 months, we have had 4 or 5 schools that have actually purchased 12 or 15 passenger vans that we have to tell them they cannot use it in school service. So they become mail trucks or maintenance trucks, whatever. Some of the dealers do buy them back, and I don't want to get into all of the background on it, but federally, you could not use a 12 or 15 passenger vehicle for school use for years. Now New York State has it as part of our regulation to back that up. So, there were some changes that were done to the regulations to bring that in. Also, not concerning this group, but we added a lot of regulations on stretch limousines. They are now part of the regulations. So that's just a big piggyback on what Chad was going through.
That website is kind of hard to use, even when you can get on it. It took me like a couple of days to get the school to let me go on it, and then when I went to use it, it was cumbersome to use compared to the old way.
Okay.
You mean the 720 regulations?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're really tough to use.
Okay. We're still, I mean, nothing is set in stone. And honestly, if we get to a more stable portion where the regulations are, you know, a little bit more stable, the other portion of this too is that we actually don't have a PDF for our inspectors. They all go through the website as well. It takes a little bit of time for our staff to go through, to cut, to rip the thing, reformat, to get it into a friendly format. And if we have to do that every month or so, it's not going to be conducive. So, I mean, honestly, if we get to a more stable point, we can see what we can have available, and we can also, you know, take a look and see if we can find any other solutions. But as of right now, I think that's where we're going to be. But let's we'll certainly take it back and look at it. Absolutely.
And my other thing is, if I report every heater motor, every time I got to go out after a bus as an accident, that's going to skew my numbers and get me fired. They're going to say, why are you having so many accidents?
They don't show on your profile, so no one's going to know except us internally. And again, we're not trying to change the way you report things, but the question was asked, is it reportable? By the regulation, yes, it is. Any smoke in the passenger area would be reportable.
Well, it's not so much the smoke, it's the smell. It even says if it smells, what does it say? Something about the smell.
A noxious
Odor, yes. But it's the same regulation that's been in place for 25 years. It's not a new regulation.
So how many reports of like heater motor smells do you get a year?
Between the three of us, I don't recall very many of them. We get check engine lights, we get reported DEF problems, many running issues where the buses just stop running on the road or they break down and they can't continue. But as far as heater motors, I don't recall that we've had any.
So are we really having an issue where heater motors are starting to smoke all that much?
Well, you get a couple a year anyway. I mean, I got 217 buses. I'm going to get one or two a year. Absolutely. I don't report them because I don't consider that an accident. I consider that maybe an incident. But it's like if a driver says I smell something and writes it up as a DVIR, and I bring it in and change it because it is a heater motor, I'm not even thinking, it's not even in my wheelhouse to report that as an accident.
Right. So I would not change the way you're doing things as long as there's no issue, and you always let your local MVI so they're aware of it. But I have to answer the question the way the regulation is written and the way it was asked. And that is the way the regulation is written.
All right. Are we mostly clear on that? So here, I think this would be the statement that I would probably put in behind that discussion as well, is that if you have a scenario where what you believe to be a heater blower is smoking, and you know you don't report it anywhere, and what winds up happening is that it doesn't, either through a DVIR or somebody misses it and the next day the bus catches fire, it's going to be an issue. So if you've got a means of, you know, taking care of it and making sure that, you know, that it's being covered and isn't impacting the health and safety of the kids on the bus and the bus is being maintained, I don't see where we would know about that. But you always run the risk that if you're not reporting something that is regulatorily required, that should something further happen down the road and it's something that should have been reported and something else bad happens out of it, then you would be certainly on the hook for not having reported it. So even though we don't report them now, you're running a risk if you choose not to report it because of the fact that if there's some bad circumstance that comes out of it, you would be liable for not being in compliance because you didn't report it.
Well, I buy heater filters by the pallet, so it's not like we're not doing a PM. I mean, we're doing a good PM. We're changing our filters, we're cleaning our buses. We're checking buses right now for cleanliness. Vacuum everything out, but you're always gonna get a step well heater that goes out on you. When you got 160 big buses, you're gonna get one or two a year because you're always opening the door, sucking in the dirt, and you know how it is. You're not in a clean room. You're in a school bus with kids tracking on dirt, and it's sucking in. Eventually, you're gonna lose one.
Absolutely. And again, the accident reporting, it doesn't go on your profile as showing an accident. It's just a notification to us so we can follow up, especially if there's kids the next day that may have a issue from the smell or the smoke. That's the biggest thing. And we get, there's some days we get 30 and 40 reports, throughout the state.
And then, as you can tell, the regulation is also outdated because most the term accident isn't typically used anymore. Usually, it's either crash reporting or incident reporting.
Right.
So, to Jeff's statement, it really is intended to be an incident report in regards to something happening with the vehicle, and it gets reported to us in case we have any concerns about compliance or any additional actions needed.
And again, we're trying to stick to what the regulation says is reportable. If you do a tail swing and you hit a car in the parking lot and there's no injuries, no mechanical failure, it's not reportable. If you touch two mirrors together and break them, it's not reportable. And we get these reports every day because some of the operators want to make sure that they're covered so there's no issue. But sticking by the wording that's on the report, you'll be good to go. And just another real life scenario, if you're in charge of reporting the accidents, and again, we can't mandate it, but someone else in your garage or your school, whatever it may be, should also know how to report the accidents. Real life scenario, we had a smaller school. There were two people in the garage. The director always reported the accidents and they were off for the week. This accident went non-reported for a whole week and we were getting reports from the outside agencies that this accident happened. We had no knowledge of it. And granted, the guy was off. He reported it when he got back on Tuesday. And the person that was in the garage, when we spoke to them, they knew nothing about accident reporting. So there should always be a backup within your facilities to take care of that if somebody's off or sick. And again, we can't mandate it, but someone should be picking it up if that person is gone. Any other questions?
Go ahead, Ken.
Good morning. Basically, any vehicle that has to be towed from an incident has to be reported then.
That is correct. If
'Cause
it's-
I always thought of it as any mechanical failure was because of the incident, you would have to report it. Like if God forbid you lost your brakes, then you'd have to report it. But if another vehicle hits your vehicle and it's not your fault whatsoever, and it has to be towed, then you need to know about it.
If there's no injuries, mechanical failure, no.
But if mechanical failure because of the incident, then you need to know.
No, if it's caused by the accident, no.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
no, we're talking about mechanical failure what
Resulting.
has caused the accident. not-
That's what I wanted to be 100%.
Yes.
That's gotcha. Understood.
Yeah.
Now, let's say, for example, the school nurse comes, all the kids checked out and they're fine. No one's considered injured. But then a parent demands that their child goes to a hospital just to get checked out for, who knows what reasons. How do you classify that?
Now that would be an injury, a reportable injury, so it is a reportable accident.
Just because they went to the hospital, even if the nurse said they're not injured?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
that was a little tricky. We didn't,
Absolutely.
that situation is hard to say. Okay.
It's actually a claim of injury, not an actual substantiation of injury.
Gotcha. Potential and okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
No problem.
Good question.
So if everybody's got a couple minutes, I'm just going to go over a little bit of our website here. So basically, once you come to our portion of the DOT website, you have these tabs that are on the left side: driver resources, bus inspection program, school bus transportation enforcement program, carrier profile. All of these items. Not all of these items apply to school transportation, but as you read through them, there is quite a few pieces of good information. Under the driver resource information screen, you're going to have links for 19A requirements for your drivers, medical examiner certificates, CDL information, pre-trip inspection information. Under the bus inspection program tab, it's basically a high level overview of of our actual inspection procedures, but it also has your profiles, your state financial year profiles in files down at the bottom of the screen here. It also has your information for your appeal. And then also out of service regulations and our interpretation file. Our enforcement program, which none of you, I hope, will ever be subject to our enforcement, but should you start hitting into out of service rates that are higher than 25% in your inspection, we do have enforcement activities that occur, and a notice of violation can be issued with penalties up to $10,000. There's quite a bit of activity for those operators that hit that substantial mark. So I know that part of the reason why everyone is here is because they actually care about their job and the safety of these vehicles. So I don't anticipate anybody being on our enforcement radar anytime soon, but just be aware that we do enforcement actions on operators that aren't matching that criteria. We have our carrier profile, which provides some of the other information. It basically repeats the operator profiles where you can find them for the particular year. We use that information to determine your category. As an operator category, you will now be good, which is 90% and above, which means you're eligible for critical item inspections. You will be acceptable if you're anywhere between less than 90, but more than 75% pass rate. You will be acceptable. You lose the ability to have critical item inspections at that level. And then if you are need improvement, that's our failure rate, or I'm sorry, pass rate of 75% or less. And that's where you're subject to enforcement actions. B's and C defects will prompt a failure of the inspection where you will not get your certificate issued. I believe most of us here are in the school bus industry, so passenger authority is for adult transportation for hire. These are your big motor coach companies, your shuttle bus companies. There's quite a bit more that needs to happen for compliance behind the scenes for the adult transportation industry than the school bus side of things. For the laws, rules, and regulations, you have your our interpretations. We have an educational guide. We have the vehicle and traffic law and the New York State transportation law, and those regulations that are appropriate to ours. Your biggest one would be that 720 section. We already were floating in the reportable accident tab. Related links can be helpful. Frequently asked questions. We've added some frequently asked questions in relative to a couple of commonly asked questions. We have some information about the stretch modified vehicle policy, because we do have regulatory oversight of altered vehicles commonly known as stretch limousines. Our performance-based bus safety program, I basically just gave an overview of that, where your categories will be established based upon your out of service rate. It'll either be good, acceptable, needs improvement, or unrated. Unrated are those entities that don't have 10 inspections within the last 2 years. And these are the list of each of the operators in each of the categories. UCR, if you're doing non-school work across state lines, there's information here. And then you have contacts, which will give you all of our regional staff supervisor contact information.
I think we have a question.
Yes.
Go ahead, John.
Yes, back in January, they said that about the profile category names. Now, why did they change unacceptable to now needs improvement? Is that just to make people feel better, or?
I'm not entirely sure of the reason behind it, but it was handed down to us that it seemed like it was more of a adequate description of the categories. Good question. I mean, whether you're called good or acceptable or unacceptable or needs improvement, it's all semantics.
Yeah, like I said, some people just don't care, and buses are garbage, but everybody else has to pay the price for it.
That's true. Any other questions? All right, and then the last portion here is contacts. We have Steve Farina here in the office, Chad Smith, Jim Leonard, who's not joining us today, and Jeff Cory. These are your principal managers and staff here at the main office. In the field, in each different region, we have contact information for supervisors. So at the end here, unrelated to school and or us, we also have our public transportation safety board information here, which probably isn't going to impact you much. think that's a fairly good overview of the website.
Good job. Any questions, follow-up? I know we ran quite a bit late, so I appreciate everybody staying online. We'll see you on July 11th at the On Center for the people that's going to the head mechanics summer seminar. And I believe Dan will probably talk about, there's 2 training sessions prior to that. I believe Thomas and Bluebird are both putting on training sessions the day before, but that's out of our realm. That's more the head mechanics. So I want to thank everybody for attending, and we're always there for questions. Again, if we do not know, we can't even try to fix it. So I really like to keep the line of communication open. And sometimes if we don't have a good answer, that's exactly what you'll be told. We don't have a good answer. So I want to thank everybody for attending.
All right. Well, we want to thank you guys for putting on the presentation for us. Steve, Chad, and Jeff. A lot of good information here. I think that, you know, on behalf of all of us, we all want to keep that good working relationship right with DOT. It's all about safety. And of course, that's what we're all about. We all want to make sure that we're doing it the right way and not getting a lot of A failures for things. So moving forward from that, has anybody had any problems with those brake linings that we spoke about? I had another district talking about it, and I just want to make sure that everybody's informed on it still, and that was the fleet right. But something to keep an eye out for, and that was recorded in our last meeting. We're not going to have a meeting in July because it's the summer seminar, as Jeff said. We're going to be at July 11th. July 10th, I sent out Bluebird's training schedule this morning, and I don't have Matthews yet, but we'll have that. During the seminar, we will have air conditioning and brake training. And so there's going to be a lot of good information here at this summer seminar. So everybody should try to make it if they can. We do need some more training topics for the upcoming school year. I have a request for the Matthews, Leonard, and Bluebird to do the electric buses again to talk about the changes that they've made for the first 3. But after that, we have to meet with our steering committee, and once I do that, I will update the site. I do have a couple requests from you guys about what you would like to have for training, and we're definitely going to meet that. So definitely keep the training topics coming. Does anybody have anything else to add to today's meeting? Now, it was a little longer than most, but I think it was well worth it. This meeting is being recorded, so we'll be able to refer to it. Other than that, if nobody has anything to add, I will close today's meeting, and I will see everyone on the 11th or the 10th if you go to the training before in Syracuse.
Thank you, Mr. Cory.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good job.
All right, thank you. We'll see you guys all later. We'll see you later, Harry.
Take care of yourself, okay? Stay out of trouble.
We're going to try.